the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. And how are you?
I'm good.
You know, I know a police officer who was in law enforcement quite a while ago, and then his family wanted him to get out of it, so he did. And after years and years and years, he decided that he wanted to get back into it. And I think that a lot of that came down to this sense of identity crisis and always thinking back to the what ifs, or, you know, when your mind goes back to something. For me, this whole week, it's been German chocolate cake. I've been thinking about my birthday is coming up next month. And
can I make you a homemade from scratch German chocolate cake like I did that one year?
I want one from Vons.
The Vons
That's the one I've been thinking about. Oh, yours is good. You can do both if you want.
I just wanted to offer.
You know, and I think that for a lot of first responders, they underestimate this transition that takes place when it comes to an identity shift that can come with rank changes or promotions or stepping away from the job entirely. And it's important to just discuss this because growth is supposed to feel safe and rewarding. But for a lot of people, I think that it feels a little disorienting.
I'm really thinking about, I miss investigating. Like, I miss being able to sit down and be able to use my brain to really problem solve and start going down the rabbit holes I used to, and be able to kind of piece everything together and organize things and go through the processes that I used to. I truly do miss that because I enjoyed that so much. And I think over time, you know, you move on in your career, you promote, you move out of it. Because I think once, I miss the investigation side, but I love what I'm doing now too. So I think sometimes it's hard for me when I see my guys doing this investigation. I want to sit there. I want to put my hands onto it, to do it myself instead of just letting them doing it. And so that's where I've been adapting my styles in to where I can fulfill that kind of that piece that I'm not getting to do anymore because I'm not an investigator. I'm allowing my guys to investigate. And so I'm using that piece to teach them how they can properly investigate things to further themselves more.
Yeah, because, you know, responsibilities change, and I think peer relationships shift, and then expectations evolve, and that version of yourself that felt familiar, it no longer fits into the role that you're stepping into. So it's important to unpack why advancement and retirement can feel destabilizing sometimes, and how to navigate that emotional side of the professional growth.
Yeah, because I think if we're not moving forward, if we're not learning something new, if we're not changing these dynamics, because we start getting into a routine, into a rut, that we need to always want to push ourselves to want more, to have people in our lives who push us, like Ashley does to me, is push ourselves to want more and to find avenues to where we can excel, we can exceed our own expectations of not only who we are. You might be phenomenal and great at what you're doing, but you should always be looking at how you can set yourself up for that next step to be able to progress, because you don't want to become stagnant.
So the psychological concept here is called role identity transition, and it basically happens when changes in your position or your life stage disrupt how you might see yourself and even how you relate to other people. And so for first responders, that strong occupational identity can make things like promotions or retirement feel like an achievement, but also a loss at the same time.
I see this on a regular basis when people, especially, are in the promotional realm of, you know, just for myself, for example, when I promoted, you kind of feel like, wait, hold on. No, I wanted this. I wanted to promote. I wanted to do this. So why do I feel this way? And it's having that recognition, is because even in the beginning, when I first promoted, I was thinking from that investigator's mindset and trying to bring that to my guys, trying to teach them that you still do that as a supervisor, as a sergeant, but you have to be able to not only bring what you have to the table, it's being able to reformat that and being able to implement it to where it meets each individual person. So you're changing that investigator mindset to a supervisory mindset, because everything's all good when things are good, but as soon as something goes bad, it's always going to come back to you because ultimately you weren't there to give them that supervision that was necessary.
In a past episode, we talked about how promotion can often feel like a grieving process. And I think that when it comes to role identity transition, it can often feel like you're disconnected from your former peers, or you have this sense of imposter syndrome because you're now placed in this new role. And you have grief over leaving those familiar responsibilities. There's also this level of uncertainty about purpose after you retire. I see that happen all of the time. And then you have this pressure to perform while internally you're just adjusting when you have been promoted in this new position.
Yeah. And I think with every rank, with every team you go to, with everything that you do throughout your careers, you're going to go through these processes. And it's being able to, when your routine changes, it's uncomfortable. You're not feeling like your normal self, and it's being able to adapt to establish that new routine, because once you're establishing that routine and you start figuring out that the old pieces of yourself that you once were, they're still there, but you might not be needed for these specific instances.
There's a lot of signs too that we can pay attention to see whether or not we're experiencing an identity shift. And I think the first is that you feel proud, but also unsettled. I think success carries these unexpected emotions. And also relationships at work might feel different because those peer dynamics have shifted. And I think that too, a lot of people question where they fit in now in this new role. And because of that level of confidence that you had that got you into that position, probably it might start to feel inconsistent.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest shifts, especially with promoting through the ranks with those changes, is it's you have people who promote through the ranks and they're like, yeah, look at me, and they're using that power and that supervision kind of mindset of, you have to listen to me and do what I say, instead of, as you're promoting through the ranks. Like I have partners that I worked with for years, and we're close friends. Like we've developed that friendship and that relationship. And now I have to look at it as, well, they're an officer and I'm a supervisor. We can still be friends, but they have to respect, one, the supervisory aspect of you, and you have to respect your friendship of them at the same time.
Deanna, I'm going to pause for a second because I'm thinking about those people you're talking about, and they don't come into our home. We're not like going out with them on the weekends, right? So there's a difference between being friends and being friendly.
Yes. And it's being able to draw that line and being able to have that separation is, being friendly, being able to communicate with them, but effectively when it comes down to where this is a situation we're going through, to where they're not going to sit back and second guess what you're doing because you're doing things a specific way, and they have to be able to follow that chain of command, because that is gold within our profession.
There's so much involved with promoting, especially, and I see a lot of times where people might miss the parts of the old version of themselves because that type of familiarity feels very comforting. Or maybe they feel pressure to have it all figured out right now, but internally they feel like they're uncertain.
Yeah, and I think this is it's an internal struggle that everyone's going to go through, but I can say this because I've seen a lot of people promote through my career, and you see the ones that they promote and you're like, what the hell happened to that person? But then you see the people is like, well, that's just them. They've been that way their entire career and nothing's changed. And that's something that, like, for me, as I promoted, as I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I don't need to go out and, like, I'm going to be me. I don't care what rank I'm at. And I'm going to treat the people the same way, whether I'm their partner or I'm their supervisor, unless they have to test me differently.
So there are ways to navigate through this. And if I were to put together the curriculum working on the mental health aspect during the academy training, then something that I would make sure that I talked about is that we need to normalize that growth is going to include grief. And you're going to gain and lose, and it's often going to coexist with each other.
Yeah, and I think like I can think of, like they touch on things are like, oh, you're going to see this dynamic shift over time and you're going to see these changes happen, but they never teach you how to handle those changes and how to deal with those changes. And I think we, as we're learning this, is it's brushed on, it's touched on so quickly that you're like, well, that's not a right now problem. I'll worry about that in the future. And we can't put ourselves in those instances leading up to it to be able to formulate our plans and action plans on how we're going to change it.
One of the biggest mistakes that I see is that, let's say that you're promoted to detective. In your mind, it's now at a battery charge of 100%. However, the way that we should reframe this is that we are now at 1% because we finally accomplished the beginning of that detective journey. So now we need to allow ourselves the time and the space to be able to make that transition and to understand that transitions take time. And just like a battery that's plugged into a charger, your phone charging from 1% all the way up to 100, it's going to take that time for you to be able to make that full transition. And it's okay for us to look at it like that and to realize that we're starting out at the bottom. I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.